Welcome to Crimson Guitars, welcome to the Kuari build. This thing is coming together rapidly. This guitar is being made out of a 42,000-year-old, plus or minus 800 years, carbon-dated piece of Swamp Kuari from New Zealand, and it has mostly been fun. Burn it. Perfect! The frets last week killed me, but the end result and the discoveries that I made along the way have, well, really excited me. The most important thing for me right now is I really want to see this super glue finish with a hint of guitar finishing oil on the top. Like really, really, really. So yeah, let's do that then, shall we? The finish on this fretboard, if you don't know what it is, you need to go back and watch the video from last week. Oh, I'm just going to carve that away. The finish on here is super glue, and it's pretty cool, but it's matte, and I'm not getting the chatoyance that we did when it was nice and glossy. So I need to tidy up these fret ends so that I can apply some oil quickly. Start off with a leveling file, and essentially they're still a little bit pointy and a little bit in the way. But once you get going, you're good. And there you hear the sound change from cutting metal to resting on the side of the fretboard, for the most part. Okay, next up I use the very good fret and beveling file from Crimson to set the angle. I've come up with a much easier to manufacture design, which I'm quite excited about. But for now, these are the ones. Once I've hit the fretboard, i.e. you hear the sound of the file change from filing metal to filing wood, I then want to move over to a leveling beam with 240 or 320 grit on there. I'm essentially pre-polishing parts of the fret ends to just make my life easier later. I'm now actually doing that with fret leveling as well, before I even crown, with the risk of slipping over and scratching the top. I actually am now trying to use finer leveling beams to pre-polish the tops of the frets, just to gain a little edge. Yeah, why not? Leveling beam. Nice and fine. At this point I've already got the angle and I can feel where that is. And I can also slowly round it over a little bit to make for a more comfortable, well, playing experience. And this is where it's going to come to life. Penetrating guitar finishing oil. It's thinner. It's not going to penetrate much because of the super glue here. But it's going to be transformative. That's as it is with the matte super glue finish, and the other half, just immediately the whole guitar, or at least the whole fretboard, turns into this beautiful 3D, alive, beastly, gorgeous thing. I've run out of words, run out of superlatives. I'm going to add a load more oil, and then once that's actually buffed up a little bit, oh yes. This is actually the first part of the guitar to essentially be almost close to its final form. I'm aware, those of you that have been shouting at the screen for for this episode and the last, that I haven't cut the nut yet. The final nut slot, I'm going to match that to the nut material, and it doesn't have to be done just yet. But yeah, the actual surface of this fretboard is nearest damn it done. Now I'm going to be moving away from neck work for a little bit technically, finalize some carves and chamfers and a little bit of sanding and that sort of thing. That will be, oh yes, I've got a little screen offside so I can see what you see. That will be, well, tomorrow for me and in 14 seconds for you. So why did I say 14? Now I've got to delay for a bit. It's got to be 14 seconds. Well, let's clear this off and get it in there done because, well, I want to. And this is all going to be sealed with super glue as well, so the whole, well, the whole guitar is going to match very nicely. Okay, I'm having issues with the location of this inlay. The multiple lines going through, the multi-laminar construction of the neck is cool, but having the black swamp ash inlay and the black lines, from a design point of view, it's just throwing up errors in my operating system. What would have been incredibly cool is if I had realized, and instead of having this line going through, had actually created the logo so that it followed the line and then bent the veneer around, so the logo was actually built into the headstock itself. Sadly, we're beyond that point. Do we have the logo bang in the center in between the two lines, or do we have it actually on a line? So maybe that one. Either of those are valid, but I think both of them are wrong. Essentially, you've got the line coming in, doing something, and then just shooting through the inlay. And then the same thing if the headstock, if that neckline is bang in the middle, you've got just a great big old mess around the body where it just doesn't work. What I am going to do is essentially put it there. So my headstock is just touching at this line, and it's going into that. It's a much cleaner look. I think that looks a lot more in keeping, and that was a really difficult decision. And of course, this is really brittle, so this is not going to be particularly easy. The space there, the space there, and the space there is roughly the same now. So there we go. How do I do this?
very, very, very gently doing this. Almost no pressure. The weight of the scalpel itself is making that cut. So I've missed that, and all the way around there. So that's a very gentle cut, and essentially the scalpel blade will now fit in that cut as I make it deeper. And this is a very, very sharp brand new scalpel blade. It's going to want to travel and follow grain or cut, whichever is the sort of most pronounced. So yeah, got to be careful. Now, could I have done this with a CNC? Yep, absolutely. Should I have? Maybe not. A Dremel is the other option. You mark the whole thing out carefully using the scalpel, and then you go and excavate the cavities using a multi-tool, essentially. But this is all so soft that I'm going to just go in and pick it out with a nice little sharp chisel. Very, very tiny little chisel. Okay, the grain is going the other way, so flip it around and clamp it down. So this chisel has been custom ground to be that thin. Look how flexible it is. Hold on, can you see that? There you go. I didn't do this, but when I saw it I fell in love and had to own it. And I'm being very careful around the walls because this carry is so soft that even if I twist the chisel inside the hole, I'm going to make a mark that I don't want to see. And this is another reason why I'm actually doing it by hand. It's so soft that if I went through with a multi-tool, I would be worried about going off-piste. Now you can recover from pretty much any mistake. I'd just rather avoid them if possible. Oh, that corner's starting to want to come away then. Okay, yeah, we're getting there. Delicate work, but well worth it. Yeah, I just dropped my chisel. Maybe I shouldn't be doing delicate work this side of lunch. I'm holding on to this chisel with all the fingers. I'm resting my hand against the guitar or the workbench or the clamp. I've then got the chisel in a couple of fingers at least, maybe even 3 on that hand. And then as much as possible, I'm touching the whole tool. I do not want to fall off this cliff. I'm in total control. And after saying I'm in total control, that is exactly when something's going to go wrong. Okay, so if it's done what I hope it's done, it's all actually going to be too tight and the inlay won't fit in, and I'll have to gently make everything a little bit bigger in certain places. Okay, we're just in there, up to the neck. So you see, that corner there, and that curve, my back is starting to go already. Let's turn this off. One of the world's most renowned inlay artists, literally best in the world, was commissioned by Martin to do their, I think it was their 1 millionth guitar. And to the point where his insurance company, this is such an expensive guitar, his insurance company would not insure him to have the entire guitar in his workshop at the same time. He had to have the neck and work on the neck and then send that back to Martin and then do the body. Have a look close up of the images of this guitar. And tell you what, here you go, flash up on the screen the headstock. And have a look at the filled gaps around all of the prettiness. The actual inlays going into the actual wood, there are cavernous areas where they've filled it with essentially dust and glue and bits and pieces. And yeah, from a distance, it looks incredible, and that's the whole point. The engraving is superlative. The cutting of the pearl, etc., is incredible. But this was done by a person, and people are not perfect. We are not CNC machines, and would we want them to be? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Anything that happens on this wood is going to be blatantly obvious. I'm genuinely trying for as close to perfection as I can get. I'm not saying this to have a go at the artist who did the Martin guitar. That's not what I'm trying to do here. So please don't shout at me for being an artist. Do I stop for a coffee or do I finish? Oh, come on then, let's have a go. If people looked at some of my old work, you'd be able to pick holes in it. Hell, you could pick holes in this guitar I'm building right now if you really tried hard enough and really wanted to. So yeah, it's more about what do we want to see from people working in wood, from people working with inlays. Do we want computer numerically controlled qualities of absolute precision, or do we want something that's got a little bit more soul, a little bit more character, and you can see how they made it and why these things happened, etc. Let's rebel against our robotic overlords. Okay, and I can't scrape that way because that is a little bit delicate there, that corner. You bastard. Just caught that. Good thing it's Bog Oak. And that's going to fit in there with absolute perfection. You won't, unless you watch this, know that anything untoward happened. Or that I swore. Now if I had a sharp and small chisel, you could sort of pair using a chisel, pair around that area on the external curve. There we go. I am going to be massaging it in gently with a hammer. I am going to be using super glue to glue it in because, frankly, I'm going to be sealing the entire headstock with super glue in any case. If I wasn't doing that, if I wasn't using super glue as a finish, I would use wood glue.
As a general rule, you do not want super glue on your eyeballs. If you do get it in your eyeballs, then don't close your eyes. Rule number one. Rule number two, just stick your finger in and the super glue will stick to your dry finger and come off your eyeball quite easily. Trust me, it's happened several times. I now wear goggles. I came so close to sticking the stalk of this goggle in my eyeball there, which would have been almost worth the pain for the comedy of it.
These wicking tips are actually really, really useful. Now what we might see here is super glue actually wicking down the grain and ending up there, for example. And that's something that is a problem if you're going to be doing an inlay into maple or something like that. Again, in this case, we're actually not worried because we're flooding with super glue anyway. If I was worried, however, you flood the inlay cavity with something like shellac to seal it, or just don't use super glue. So I have some visible but minuscule gaps in a few very tiny places. I could fill it with super glue now and then always have that gap, or wait for a second, wait for this to cure, and then essentially it'll be filled with a little bit of dust from the sanding process. So we'll do that.
Ooh, haha! Brought my favourite chisel.
I've literally gone from the sublime to the ridiculous. Okay, so I'm just going to get most of it away. I'm currently cutting with the grain. If I just hit this with a file or a rasp or something like that, it would run the risk of pulling the inlay out of the cavity sideways. Remember, I have not flooded the sides of this with as much glue as I normally would, because I'm hoping to do that now. So I'm still having to be quite delicate while wielding a 2-inch chisel. It's moving a little bit there. If my chisel was sharper, I could have gone down flush without worrying, but as it is, it's not quite at the level that I would like. So you can see little strips of super glue going in there. There's a few tiny little gaps where the dust has now filled in those gaps. And yeah, we're going to go with some, still with the medium super glue. I don't use thin super glue very often at all. And there we go. So that's, well, I'm going to let that cure for a bit. I'm not going to hit this with accelerator. I don't want to risk any bloom. But gaps have now absolutely disappeared. And I'm really, really happy with the positioning. So, woohoo. Normally I'd go off, wait for this to cure, and then end up with a lumpy old chunk of super glue to sand down, file down, scrape, etc. We learned with the fretboard last week that you can just wipe the excess away. Now, if I think that if I was filling a gap and that I was going to be using this and then it would pull the stuff, the material out of that gap, that would be a problem. But this is so fine that in reality, I'm going to give it a go. Let's see. Now, also last week, a bunch of people commented on the video and said, hey Ben, I've done that with super glue with kitchen roll and the kitchen roll caught fire. So just be aware that you might burn your workshop down if you are doing this and you're not careful. So we don't want you to burn your workshop down. Yeah, don't do it. Accelerator tends to only bloom within the first minute of the glue going on. What? I mean, not strictly necessary, but fire is fun. Come on. And it's cured, so now I can file back the excess. So there we go. Now you can see what I was talking about the super glue sort of going into the grain of the wood. This is particularly germane in softer timbers, sycamores, etc. And obviously on whiter woods you can see it a lot more. But yeah, that is not going to be an issue because I'm about to somewhat preemptively or early. I do still need to drill a whole bunch of holes. I'm just going to flood the top of this with super glue and get that finishing process started so we can see what it's going to look like, and so that I can show you that all of that mess is going to disappear. No gaps though. Nice. Thin super glue to start with, because why not? Actually, because it dries too fast. Go on. Damn. So that's why not. Because you want it to go on evenly. Wow, this is sinking in so much. Hot damn. Because I reacted so quickly, it's actually sunk in quite evenly. So that's good. This guitar is shaping up to be a bit of a beauty. What do you mean I forgot to put the extractor on? Ha! Yeah, okay, hi. Look, I've gone off-piste, everything's gone crazy. This wasn't the video that I thought it would be. It was a whole lot more. I'm having fun, and I hope you are too. More builds coming, more guitars coming, more on this build coming. And yeah, click like, subscribe, share with your friends if you wouldn't mind. But yeah, for now, well, let me know what you think in the comments below. And have a good one. See you soon. Goodbye.